Good morning and welcome to today's installment of the Follicular Lymphoma Breakfast Briefings from ASH 2021 on Saturday, December 11th. Today will be a great day as we kick off the annual conference. I'm your host, Dr. John Leonard, Professor of Hematology and Medical Oncology in the Department of Medicine at Weill Cornell Medicine in New York and New York Presbyterian Hospital. Today, we're going to highlight 3 abstracts on emerging therapies for relapsed and refractory follicular lymphoma that fall around a common theme. One abstract covers mosunetuzumab as a monotherapy. A second covers mosunetuzumab in combination with lenalidomide. And the third covers glofitamab in combination with obinutuzumab. So the first abstract is authored by Dr. Elizabeth Budde from City of Hope in Duarte, California, and it's entitled Mosunetuzumab Monotherapy is an effective and well-tolerated treatment option for patients with relapsed and refractory follicular lymphoma who've received 2 or more prior lines of therapy. Pivotal results from a phase 1/2 study. Mosunetuzumab is one of several bispecific antibodies that are in clinical trials right now, and I think have the potential to affect treatment for many patients with follicular lymphoma and other lymphomas in the future. It's a CD20, CD3 bispecific antibody. It targets cytotoxic T cells to malignant B cells. And this was a large study focused on a phase 2 dose expansion with a group of patients that had 3 or more prior therapies. And the idea was that these patients received mosunetuzumab over the course of at least 8 cycles of therapy or longer if they didn't achieve a complete response. So this population of patients was substantial. When you look at the 3rd line and beyond relapsed and refractory follicular lymphoma patients, there were 90 patients, and the overall response rate was 79%, CR rate 58%. And when you look at some patients with adverse prognostic features based on prior therapies or prior progression or refractory disease, the response rates were quite similar, and the CR rates were in the range of 50% or more in all of the groups. So I think this suggests that this may be an agent that has utility in recurrent follicular lymphoma in a number of settings. And the next abstract is one example of where the potential use of this agent in the future is under investigation. This was led by Frank Morschhauser from Lilly France, and his presentation was entitled Mosunetuzumab in combination with lenalidomide has a manageable safety profile and encouraging activity in patients with relapsed and refractory follicular lymphoma. This is a small study looking at lenalidomide, again in combination with mosunetuzumab, the idea being that we've looked in other studies with lenalidomide and rituximab, for example, but this is looking at the value of adding lenalidomide to mosunetuzumab. And in the small series of patients treated here, the overall response rate was over 90%. Again, it was just 13 patients from that parameter. There were some adverse events. It was cytokine release syndrome, which we've seen in different bispecific antibody therapies, but these were predominantly grade 1, almost all grade 1, some grade 2. And so this will be ultimately, I think, evaluated further. We'll need a randomized trial of R-squared or lenalidomide rituximab versus mosunetuzumab lenalidomide to see the difference, but I think we're encouraged that these early results seem to be quite promising. And then the last abstract also is by Professor Morschhauser, looking at glofitamab, another CD20, CD3 bispecific antibody, but this has a 2-to-1 ratio of CD20 binding compared to CD3. So the presentation was entitled Glofitamab as monotherapy and in combination with obinutuzumab induces high CR rates in patients with multiply relapsed follicular lymphoma. This was 53 patients. With glofitamab and obinutuzumab for some patients. The single agent glofitamab patients had really a high response rate as well, 81%, and the complete metabolic response was 70% in this group of patients. Cytokine release syndrome happened in about 2/3 of patients, the majority grade 1 or 2, almost all of them. When there was a combination of glofitamab plus obinutuzumab, again, some cytokine release syndrome in the majority of patients, all grade 1 and 2, but the overall response rate was 100% out of 19 patients, a 73% complete metabolic response rate. So again, I think these bispecifics are very exciting, a lot of data at ASH 2021 and elsewhere, and I think they will have a role in the future for follicular lymphoma. Thanks for joining me for day one of the Follicular Lymphoma Breakfast Briefings. Please join me again tomorrow. We'll talk about the 6-year update of the relevant study looking at lenalidomide rituximab versus our chemo and untreated follicular lymphoma. You can also follow us on Twitter at CME Outfitters and check out the archived follicular lymphoma breakfast briefings on the Oncology Education Hub at cmeoutfitters.com. We'll see you tomorrow.